My name is Ashley. I am the photographer and owner at Ash Nicole Photos, and I have decided that I want to start a YouTube channel to talk about all the ins and outs of photography, but I want to do it in a way that is easily digestible and that also goes in the actual order that you need to go in order to start your own photography business. Every time I did research throughout the last 6 years of this process, I have found really good information in all the wrong order. And it was like a big puzzle. It was like putting this here, that there. Someone would give me just a little bit of information that I wanted, and then they would just say, okay, now you have to pay for this, or you have to go do that to get all the rest of the information, yada yada. So anyways, I want to start this channel. It might take me a little bit of time to get every video created for a photographer from start to finish to be able to get the full picture. And maybe that's why some people release everything kind of randomly, where they'll talk about like starting your business in one video, and then the very next one they're talking about editing tips. That might be why, just because it's hard to get all the videos created in a timely fashion, but I'm going to do my best. And so the way that this is going to be structured is I'm going to have videos in order of what I think is the best way to go about starting your business. I'm going to get into the actual creative aspects of it later down the road, but the beginning is just going to be the nitty-gritty on the business side of things. I am going to have extended videos that go more into depth about, like today's video will be about contracts. So I'm going to talk about the most important things that you need to contract in this video. And then I'll create an extended video where I go through my own contract and explain all of the various nuances that you should consider when you're making your contract. And that will be in my subscription version. So yes, I'm one of those people who still says you should go pay for something else. Why am I doing that? Because unfortunately it's hard to work for free. So I'm going to give, like I said, the most important information for free. And then for those of you who want to do a deep dive, you can do that with me in my subscription-based service, and that link will be below if you're interested in doing that. So to start with, this video, like I said, is going to be about contracts. So before you ever take a photo of anybody, I wish somebody would have whispered this in my ear years ago. You need a contract. It could be your best friend, it could be your mom, it could be anybody that you know personally, and you still want to have a contract with them. I have had very awkward situations throughout my career. I have had people who I thought were really good friends with me, and the experience of working with them ruined our friendship because people get greedy. People don't understand all of the work that you put into developing an image, delivering it to them, all the things that you pay in order to be able to do that, and how much time it takes out of your day. People do not consider that if they do not work in the industry, and they will take advantage of you. And maybe there's that one person who does it, and that's awesome, but you should have yourself protected just in case. So contracts are very, very important. If you don't have like a CRM or something where you deliver the contract and get it executed, because that is a service that you have to pay for, you can have a written one on the day of the photo shoot, show up, have them sign it. It could be something pretty basic to start out with, it just covering the most important things that I'm going to talk about next. And then you can, as you learn, as you come into issues throughout your career, you just add to the contract. That's kind of the point of it. I am not an attorney. I have no law degree. I have no affiliation with anything to do with that kind of stuff. This is just a photographer's personal experience with figuring out what's most important in my own contract. And if you are ever looking to actually write one and make sure that it's, legal and checks all the boxes when it comes to that kind of stuff, I do recommend reaching out to an attorney for that kind of thing. So here we go. I am going to look at my screen because I don't memorize stuff well. Okay, so very first thing you want to cover is the coverage. So cover the coverage. Yeah. So you want a section that outlines the date and time of the shoot so that there's no confusion on when that is. I personally have a CRM that delivers the contract and the booking calendar together. So my contract doesn't explicitly say like this date, this time, but it does link back to the date that they confirmed on that calendar. So there's different ways to set that up, but you want to make sure that people understand that you're only agreeing to a certain day on a certain time, and then you can go into the nuances of how you can change that date and time later throughout the contract, but you want to start there. The next thing you want to talk about is payment. Are you going to ask for a retainer? Most photographers ask for something up front. The reason why is there's only so many days in a year, especially days that are sunny, which is when most people want to take their photos. If you don't get someone to pay for you to block off time on your calendar, and then they wait till the last minute and cancel or something like that, you are out of money. You might have something in your contract saying they owe you something, but hunting those people down and getting them to pay you can be challenging, especially when it's a photo shoot, because the price point is much lower than if you had a contract with somebody over a big budget type thing. So always make sure that if you are going to require a retainer, you have that in your contract. You have exactly how much that's going to cost. For me, I do 50%. So basically you pay 50% up front, the other 50% is due on the day of your photo shoot, and that covers damages for if they cancel on me last minute and I've been holding that date for them for 3 months, turned away 10 clients in that period of time for that specific date, and then they cancel. That covers me. Definitely get a clause in there about your retainer. The next biggest things that I would talk about in your contract is rescheduling and canceling. I have been very generous in my years of working, letting people reschedule up until like a couple of days before, and it has really bitten me in the ass, for lack of a better term. So you want to make sure that when you're making this contract, you don't just pick numbers out of the clear blue sky, or pick numbers that you think are just going to be super ideal for your clients, because this is still a business. It might start out feeling like it's not. You might have imposter syndrome. You might not take yourself very seriously. But trust me, later on down the line, when you are getting booked quite frequently, it's going to be hard to keep up with that kind of stuff. You're going to want to have some sort of system that is the same for every client, that is realistic for your workflow. So like, you don't want somebody to be able to cancel the day before, because guess what? You're probably not going to have time to fill that slot. So I do 7 days before. I still feel like that's very generous. But that at least gives me 7 days to either get a new client for that date, to rearrange my personal schedule so that I can do something that I need to get done on that date that might require me moving things around, that kind of thing. So definitely have something in there that explains how they can reschedule, when they can reschedule, if they want to reschedule after the grace period, what is the fee, if you're going to charge a fee. I recommend charging a fee. And then of course explain that they do not get that retainer back that you got at the beginning, because you were using that to liquidate for your time and damages. Moving on. Okay, cancellations. So along with the rescheduling, same thing with cancellations. You want everything spelled out exactly the same way for the rescheduling in a separate section for canceling. So when can they do it? If they do it, how? Do you want it in writing? Do you want them to call you? Just be very intentional when you're writing this contract, because later on down the line, when this actually becomes a realistic problem for you, you want to say, this is my contract, this is how I treat all my clients, this is exactly what you need to do. If you have questions, please refer to the contract. And that'll make you feel very confident in your business, and it'll also just make things way less stressful for you and for the client, really, because when you start sounding like you don't have things in order, you don't have a system, it makes your client anxious, because then they don't know what to expect from the service. They're thinking that they're going to have to like convince you of something, or like you might make exceptions for this person and not make exceptions for them. It's more important that you just keep everything consistent, and then that way there's no hard feelings. It's not personal. This is business. All right, late policy. This is a huge one. This one I didn't even put in my contract for like maybe a year and a half, 2 years. I don't know why. I've just always been somebody who's on time, and I just thought everybody else would be on time too. And then fast forward to now, I have a late policy, and it is not lenient at all. So let me just read you my late policy. The shoot begins at the agreed upon time. If the client is late, the photographer will photograph the client for the remainder of the time left in the session. The photographer will not rush to get the full session's worth of shots or stay later than the agreed upon time. Okay, why is that? In order to make a living as a photographer, you will realize very quickly that your time literally equals how much money you can make. That you cannot make more time, especially when you're talking about shooting in a specific type of lighting. I'm pointing that way because there's a window. You want to make sure that when you're creating your time slots, because like for me, I'm shooting multiple people a day, that you have a specific amount of buffer time in between clients so that you have time to walk back to your car, get all your stuff in the car, clean your lens, drive to the next location, stop and get gas or a snack if you need it. Like, you need that built-in buffer time in between clients. And then you also want to make sure that you're going to be able to get there in time to shoot another full session before the sun goes down. So when you're making these time slots, you can't also anticipate the amount of tardiness of your client. And I used to do a 15-minute grace period. I don't do that anymore. What I do is I explicitly tell my clients many times leading up to the shoot that traffic happens, parking can be an issue, especially in the city where I live. Leave early. You have to leave early. You have to anticipate those things. If you were going to work, they would expect nothing different. So I am a business, treat me like a business. If you are going to be late and it's something that you absolutely can't control, please call me, stay in communication with me. Obviously, if I don't have a shoot coming up next, I will make an exception up until a certain point if I feel like the client is not trying to take advantage of me. But it is very, very important that you do not let your client walk all over you and then make you late and look unprofessional to your next session. So that is a very important section of your contract that you need to address. And however you decide to address that, hey, you do you. For me, I had many photographers give me advice about how strict to be in my contract, and I was like, y'all are sticks in the mud. Y'all aren't going, you're not accommodating. You don't understand that people are human and things happen. And I, after 2 years of being extremely lenient and my feelings getting hurt and me being taken advantage of on a consistent basis, I decided that that's just not, we all are trying to make a living. Obviously, if I could, I would bend over backwards for everybody, but then that creates issues with me with future clients. And it also just makes my quality of life not great, because then I'm constantly having to go out of my way for people who I communicated it to them up front. Be early. This is where to park. If you give them all the information, the ball's in their court. If they're late, they're late. And they miss, if they're 30 minutes late to an hour photo shoot, it's a 30-minute photo shoot now. At least that's how I feel. So that's a main section. Copyright. Copyright is a huge one that you want in your contract. You own the rights of your photos. Until you give them the rights, they're yours. I would retain those rights. I would keep those rights in your contract. And then obviously, depending on who you're working with, if you're working for a brand and they're going to be using those photos and they want to purchase them from you to use forever, or if they want to lease them from you to use in different advertising campaigns, whatever the nuances is for the different clients, you need to express that in your contract, because we're in a digital world where if you don't, it's really hard to justify yourself later or to get compensated for things later. So you want to have documentation saying, hey, this is my photo, this is what you're allowed to do with it, this is what you're not allowed to do with it. So definitely have that in there. Let's see here. Anything else major? The other major part of the contract that I would include, another one that I did not include for a long time, or I did, but I was very vague with it, is your weather policy. So the number one thing that's going to make you have to reschedule a lot of photo shoots, it's a lot, is the bad weather. And people are picky. I mean, there could be 2 clouds in the sky and they're like, it's dreary, I don't want to take pictures. And unfortunately, that doesn't pay the bills. If you rescheduled somebody, they don't pay a fee, and they're only paid client you have for that day, or even if they're not, you're out hundreds of dollars for that day, and you're going to have to make up that day later, all because of a client's personal preferences on clouds. So please, please, please be very detailed about your weather policy. I can, I'll read mine. It's long, but here we go. The photographer regularly checks weather forecasts. Let me start over. The photographer regularly checks weather forecasts. However, it is ultimately the responsibility of the client to stay up to date on the weather forecast for his or her personal appointment date and time, and notify the photographer if extreme weather is predicted. Why do I do that? I do that because if I have a photo shoot, if I have 2 photo shoots every day this week, which has happened many times, and the weather is constantly changing. You guys know the weatherman's not the best. Everybody's app says something different. My Apple app weather forecast says something different than the weather channels, and so on. I've tried it. You cannot keep up with it. It's constantly changing. So instead of you trying to keep up with everybody's appointment time and forecast associated with it, just put the ball in their court. At first, it made me feel unprofessional to have to ask people to do that, and then I quickly realized that when I changed it, game changer. Because if you ask somebody to keep up with just their own thing, they can do that well. Me trying to keep up with everybody's forecasts and pulling my hair out, deciding should I reschedule or not? Should I not reschedule for each individual one? It took up my whole day. So I sacrifice professionalism for practicality, and I recommend that you do that too. Okay. What else? We define inclement weather as weather that makes photography difficult. We can still photograph in a light mist, temporary light rain or snow, and moderately low temperatures. It becomes very difficult to photograph. I need to change that. It says to photography. To photograph in moderate or continuous rain, heavy snow, and extreme low temperatures. Here is a breakdown of all my different weather policies. So I have multiple. It depends on what we're talking about. I used to have it all lumped together. I just said inclement weather, and people were like, I just saw a drop. And they saw one drop, it didn't rain for the rest of the day, and they called that rain. So here we go. When it comes to the possibility of rain, my policy is that if there is a 50% chance of rain or higher during the time we will be shooting, you may choose one of the following to move to a different location. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't read on this video. Okay. You may choose one of the following. You can either move to a different location indoors or find my next available date. Here's the important thing. Since the weather changes so rapidly, we will wait until 4 hours before our session to make a call. Trust me, I know it's hard not to wait until the hours before. It's hard to wait until the hours before, but typically the weather forecast will change a dozen times between now and then, and it is so true. It will. It will change and change and change again. You'll reschedule and then you'll regret it. I can assure you. I wait 4 hours before. Unless the client he really wants to reschedule and I have something that I really need to do that day and so it makes sense for us both. Other than that, I'm going to wait until 4 hours before because summer storms are a thing. They'll say it's going to rain all day tomorrow, or they won't say all day, but they'll say 100% chance to rain tomorrow. But what they don't say is it is from 2 to 2:25. That's it. And you reschedule 5 clients for the whole day for a little cluster summer storm. So just please add something to your contract about that and decide on a realistic time for you to make the determination instead of letting people walk all over you and say, well, it's going to rain in 9 days from now. I checked the forecast, so I need to reschedule. That's just not, you literally would run your business into the ground if you allow people to do that. Okay, my next thing, when it comes to overcast skies, my policy is that you may choose to reschedule for a fee of 25% of the shoot total. The determination will take place 4 hours prior to the shoot time based on the current sky's appearance. So, yeah, if they think it's dreary, I do not want someone to dislike their photos. It's my number one goal that people will really like their photos that I take. But I can't, like I said, I can't make a living if everybody's personal preference is keeping me from making money and having to take future dates where I could make money on that day away from me. So I do have to charge a fee, and for me it's 25%. When it comes to hot temperatures, my policy is that you may choose to reschedule if the forecast for the time of the shoot is higher than 110 degrees. The determination will be made the night before because that's pretty consistent on forecasts. When it comes to cold temperatures, blah, 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 lower than 15 degrees, same thing. We made that determination the night before. And then when it comes to severe weather, my policy is that you may choose to reschedule if the forecast calls for lightning, tornadoes, hurricanes, or blizzards for the time of the session. The determination will be made the night before the shoot. Now, the time of the session is very important because it could say lightning tomorrow, but again, summer storm. So you want to wait until they have that hourly breakdown of the forecast so that you can look, okay, your shoot's at 3, and at 3, it's 100% chance of storms. Okay, we'll reschedule. All right, so that is my contract. I am now going to record the extended version of this video where I go into all the other nitty-gritty components of my contract. If you're interested in watching that video, please, I haven't created the link yet as I'm recording this, so I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm going to put it down there. Isn't this what people do on YouTube? I'm going to put it down there and you'll be able to subscribe. I can assure you I'll put it somewhere within this video and you'll figure out how to subscribe.